with Kindred, I really appreciate it. Without giving too much, can you just talk about your narrative approach in making a story that in its bare bones is not compromising? It doesn't pander to what audiences are expecting. And I think that's a very big strength of what you were trying to do.
I think that I always wanted to try and make films that take risks. I think that if you make a film that is just fine, then there's no point just making films, really. You want to make a film, you want to make an effort to make a film that has something to say. And if it fails, at least you've taken the risk, to make something interesting. There's nothing worse than when you see a film that you think is going to be interesting and it's not. So yeah, that was the plan. I was always trying to do something interesting, for want of a better word. And I think part of that is, I worked out from doing, it's my first feature, but I worked out from doing shorts and working commercials and, I've done a couple of hundred little films of corporates and short films and commercials and music videos early in my career and stuff. So I've got a fairly good idea about what I want to say and what I'm interested in and what works for me and what doesn't. And so, we'd approach every scene in the film with I'd know kind of what I wanted to say in the scene, what I wanted to get out of the characters, what I wanted the camera to say. And that meant that when we went into a location, at no point ever was it kind of the traditional TV thing of like, right, okay, a wide shot, 2 close-ups, and let's move on. We were always thinking, where are we going to put the camera? Why, if we're going to move the camera, why are we moving it? What is the protagonist going through, and how can we best represent that with what we're doing visually in the film?
Ultimately, it's sort of a three-hander, and you're making a thriller that you want it to feel claustrophobic, but it's not stagey. And you're talking about moving the camera, the edits, and whatnot. What is the key to making a very intimate story, but ultimately, your film, in many ways, is very expansive? I don't know. It's a weird balance that you were doing.
I think we got very lucky with the location to a certain extent when it comes to that. It gave us everything we needed to kind of explore a space and to kind of get the best out of the script, Because we wrote the script without knowing what the location was going to be. You kind of put just write what you think is going to work, and it either works or it doesn't. There's a certain amount of luck involved. I think maybe you make your own luck. I don't know. And I think a lot of it comes down to the actors and the performances. I think that you go too far one way and it becomes too, what we call over here, kitchen sink drama, which is people stood around in a front room shouting at each other. Or you go too far the other way and it feels too theatrical and everyone feels like they're kind of performing for the audience. It's trying to get that balance right. But the main reason we got that balance right is because we got good cast. You cannot underestimate how good actors are. And that's half the battle.
Speaking of half the battle, obviously as a director, you have so many things to do on a given day, on production, post-production, whatever. But does the film geek in you, can you actually enjoy the moment in the present when you have Fiona delivering just that amazing monologue? Or, I mean, obviously you're a professional, but is there a way where maybe you enjoy it in the edit, maybe? Or can you just talk about that?
No, I think my favorite part is the shooting of it. I enjoy it more on the set because, I love that sense of collaboration with the crew and, involved in that. There's that one single track in on Fiona with her kind of monologue. There's so much involved in that. There's, the camera slightly moving and the focus, the dolly grip, pushing the dolly in and making sure that there's a real kind of dance to it all, her getting her lines right and all the pressures involved as well as the lighting and making sure breakfast is on time, kind of everything. And I find that so enjoyable. And when you're watching someone like Fiona say speech like that, I mean, fair enough, I wrote it, so maybe this sounds incredibly egotistical, but there's something so pleasurable about that experience. As soon as you get into the edit, it's horrible. It's like nothing but anxiety and panic. And, we didn't have any time to reshoot anything or any budget really to reshoot anything. Luckily, we didn't need to. We had enough coverage, but it was, we had to stick a few round blocks and some square holes here and there to make it work, but the audience don't know that. It's just me. So, you know, when I watch the film now, it's a slightly traumatic experience of seeing all the kind of decisions that have been made. But yeah, we'll see. Due to the pandemic, we haven't had a cast and crew screening yet, you know, so I haven't had that kind of cathartic experience of everyone getting drunk and telling me it's okay.
You know, I don't want to give anything away with your film, but can you just talk about the theme about, you know, this about what's good and what's bad? I think in many ways, some people can actually relate to the idea of trying to keep a family together. I think that's one of the really cool things you're actually putting into your narrative. Can you just talk about that subtle theme about, do you know, there's a gray area, you know, things happen that are bad, but there's something to be said about wanting to keep your family close. So,
yeah, I think that, you know, one of the things about the film that a lot of people find interesting is that we are dealing with a lot of themes that seem very relevant to now, but actually are slightly timeless, you know? And I think the idea of motherhood and dealing with the idea of a pregnancy and coming to terms with it is something that women have been going through from, you know, the beginning of time, or beginning of the human race at least. Equally, family, you know, what it's like to deal with family members you might not necessarily get on with, you know, people that you love but don't necessarily like. You know, these are things that real people go through every day of their lives, and to reflect that on screen, I think, creates a connection to the audience that a lot of people are finding very interesting.
Joe, as a filmmaker, as a youth, did you start with creating stories as a writer first, or were you always the proverbial person who picked up a camera, or maybe did those roads converge at maybe the same time in a weird way?
Yeah, so it's a slightly odd anecdote. My dad wrote TV commercials, and still did until recently. He's only just retired. And I remember when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I went on set with him, and he was shooting an ad at Pinewood, which is our big kind of film studios in London. And they were doing an ad for, you can look it up on YouTube, it's called Dam Busters, a Carding Black Label advert. And it's based on the Dam Busters, which was a story in World War II about they dropped these bombs on a dam in the Netherlands, this Nazi dam, to burst it. And they made a big movie about it. And they did like this comedy TV ad about it. And I remember being on set and just being kind of slightly amazed. And then at lunchtime, the people from the location, from the studio, took us over to visit the Gotham City, because they were shooting the first. It may have been Batman Returns. It may have been Batman. They were shooting Batman. And they built the backlot with the whole of Gotham City, and we went through Gotham City, and it just blew my mind. It was just like, and there's a 007, they shoot the James Bond films there, so there's 007 stage, and from then on, it was just like, you know, film all the way. And then I started writing first when I was probably about 13. I remember writing like an alien invasion movie, which was not very good, obviously. And then it's just something I've always done as a bit of a hobby, and then I went to film school, and then I've always been writing, but I just never really found the right break to do anything with it, and ended up working in commercials and corporate video-y type things, and some vaguely glamorous things like Paul McCartney jobs, and then some not very glamorous things like one for a toilet hose thing I had to do a few years ago. So like everything between, you know, not just glamorous things. And then, yes, started doing shorts in my spare time to kind of up my profile and to get the kind of career moving, and then made my way, crawled my way and clawed my way up to where I am now, basically. So it's not been an easy roll, easy way, I'd have to say, but it's a lot of fun, you know. I'm very lucky I get to do what I love for a living.